we're trying to address this in the schools now. We have a group that we are working with. It's called Narcotics Overdose Prevention Education. We're in Pottsgrove coming up pretty soon. But these are these programs that we're doing to try to address this with kids in the beginning so that they don't go down that track, because if they do, again, it's the recovery is not likely in many respects. I mean, everybody's doing what they can along, but from our perspective, much better to try to prevent this before they go down this track. And I was at one of our high schools last week on one of the programs. Kids were crying when they were being addressed by a mother who had lost her son, and she went through everything that goes and had pictures of him up on the board, and he was everybody's kid. He was not the kid that you thought was going down this track, and it was heartbreaking, but it touched the kids. And you hope from programs like that we're all trying to address on so many levels that you can attack these problems. So so yes, Dave, let's work on a form together and try to pull something together. We'll try to put some things together so that you all have the tip lines and the numbers that can be called, to make it as easy as we can on people, so that we can try to do this. But this is a global approach that we have to take to address these problems, because once it's impacted a community, it's difficult. I'll share one story with you that I think illustrates how dangerous this stuff is and what we're fighting. We have an undercover detective who was buying cocaine, and he was buying cocaine from these individuals, and they were trying to push heroin on him. And he said to these guys, he said, I don't have a market for that. They were near a school, and the dealers said, give it away in there and you'll have customers for life. So, this is the mentality that we're fighting against, and the people that are out there that are, and they're not using heroin. They're doing this to get people addicted so that they have customers that come and go on it. So this is where we have to really try to address this stuff up front, and talk to people and encourage them not to ever go down this track. We have these programs going, but part of this is ideas from you all and things that you have, and Dave talking about working on a form along those lines. Yeah, let's do that.
That's an excellent idea.
Let's do that.
Attorney, that's good.
All right.
And I think you should include this, if that's appropriate, this tape, the single sheet of paper with the laws, the nuisance law. Should that be included with the form? Is that a good idea to give people an idea? Well, I don't know. You have to work it out. You're the
No, I'm just a prosecutor.
you're the expert.
So, yeah.
All right, so my question is, I get it. I grew up in Delaware County in Texas Village. My best friend's still there. Her next door neighbor's son is a heroin addict, steals from all of them. The guy across the street is a child molester. I get all of that. What I don't understand, or what I'm wondering, is if Pottstown and some other communities are the bigger target for the drug dealers, because we have the socioeconomics that breed that problem. We have a huge amount of people who don't have family units. My kid's school, which is a wonderful school, 90% of the families are not husband, wife, child. They are single parent, an 18-year-old teenager. They are prostitutes. They are drug dealers. They're, so these kids are brought into this community because it's inexpensive to live here. We have a numerous amount of slumlords. So are you guys working with the whole problem? It's not just the drug unit. I mean, like I said, I've not had an issue with the police. I'm frustrated because the police can't do what I want them to do because the law forbids them to do it. But, you know, it goes to that reality. You know, we have a community of churches that got a huge grant to bring homeless into town and house them. But we don't have jobs. We don't have jobs to give these people. And they go back to what they know best, which is panhandling, drugs, So what else is it that we can do that can stop the bigger problems that are going on in the system?
Yeah, I think that's discussions that, I wish we were here with all the elected officials in the area too. Unfortunately, some of our confines of what we can do are within the office structure and what can go and working with the police. But I mean, you make great points, you know, in terms of how this can be addressed on different levels, and I think that's a conversation with elected officials and code and, you know, all those aspects to try to address it in as many levels as we can.
And that's something that's going on nationally. It's not just here. It's the structure of the family unit that's leading to
No, and I understand that all of these are not just Pottstown issues.
As Kevin said, those are all valid concerns, and what we can do the best we can is to do the best with what we have and concentrate on what we can fix, and that is the drug problem. Try to cut off that market and drive these individuals who are taking advantage of people out. But the other stuff, definitely a lot of issues, but we can unfortunately focus on certain things.
And some of the things that you had pointed out of problem residences and homes where there's things going on in the home, we have that in place in the police department. If our patrol officers go out to a residence and someone they're taking electric from another building, or whatever the case may be, or the inhabitants is not suited for humans, that is brought back, that's taken to the codes division, and they will go out and do an inspection. And then those landlords are held accountable to fix those things, otherwise there are the consequences that are imposed on them. If we're out doing our narcotics thing, or if we're dealing with a nuisance complaint, and we go into a residence where it's run down, there's issues with the residents, or there's children in there that are in an unsafe environment, we take action on that every time. If it's during hours, we will have a codes officer come out to our location and do an inspection right there. If we go into a property where there's children in situations there shouldn't be, we call children and youth. If we have a situation where it's a nuisance complaint of activity at the property, we, if possible, task officers to focus on that nuisance issue. Whether it's people hanging out in front of that property, drinking in public, and we will find out what's going on, hopefully cite them, take care of the problem, and unfortunately sometimes the people go right back and do the same thing again. So we might be back there the next week addressing the same problem.
You track
And again,
that
that's
information? You
pardon?
track multiple?
Yes.
You go to my house
Everything
3 times a week.
everything is
3 times a week.
computerized with our system. It can be brought up with the listing of the property and what we've called there, what we've been going there for. Through the 911 system, whenever a 911 call goes in for a certain department, for a certain location, when the officers are sent to that location, they're notified. There's 4 priors there for Act 64, which is narcotics violations, or multiple domestic responses to this address, mental health subject at this address. They're notified of what goes on. If in our in-house system we have everything computerized, we can call our dispatch center here at the police department, and they will look up, okay, what's going on here, who should live here, what is the situation with the property. If we go into a property and it's supposed to be a single home, and it's chopped up into 6 rooms that somebody's leasing out, that's brought back to our codes division. And they will do an inspection on that. If possible, they will take action.
If you can get into the house.
Pardon?
If you can get into the house.
Absolutely. And that is
again,
where...
that's where the law works.
Well, the law does protect everyone. It protects us. It does protect sometimes and gives them rights to the criminals. But they have rights that they've been given by our Constitution. And we have to use our skills, our training, and our knowledge of the situation, especially here in Pottstown when we deal with narcotics and the violence. We have to use our training and knowledge to, believe it or not, a lot of times we get consent. And you get a lot further with honey than you do with vinegar. So sometimes we talk to the people, build a rapport with them, and it is surprising how many times you will get consent to search someone's car. You will get consent to search a person if you believe that they're involved in narcotics activity. And a large majority of the arrests come from that. So that is based on the police officer using their knowledge and experience to move forward, which is, you know, it's amazing what our officers do and what they accomplish in a day's time. And I know everyone has their own opinions in reference to law enforcement, but I'm proud to be a part of that. And I know our officers feel like we're fighting for those citizens that are frustrated and feel like they want somebody to do something. That's what we're here for. That's what we have been called to do our job for. And it is a calling. We don't have officers that work for us that are here because it's just a job. It's a calling. If you're going to put yourself in harm's way and you're going to fight for everyone else that can't get to that point on their own, or don't have the capability, or don't have the skill set to get there, or the citizens that don't want to face that fear of the danger, that's why we're here. And it is a calling, and we're here for the community. And otherwise, the officers wouldn't be here. And that's why we go through the selection process we do for the Pottstown Police Department.
Respectfully, we all understand the long term, you want to get the bigger fish, but our community needs relief now. Now, wait, you, aside from the forfeiture laws that take years to happen, there was a local ordinance in place that would charge back to the property owner, the landlord, a nuisance for the property. I know that's not being enforced. If you have all the computerized information that gives you every single call to that property, one, there's no reason it's not being enforced. Two, if you need it to be easier, if you need a way that there's only very specific things that you can enforce that nuisance charge back to, we as council will vote to make it easier for you to do that, but we need to know what you need in order to get that done.
Right. And unfortunately, I'm a little further down on the food chain, but that's an issue that would have to be taken up with our command staff and with council working together to see what can be done in those billback situations. I mean, there is billback that's set up in reference to disturbance calls, alarm calls, those type of things. But again, that has to be taken up with a little bit higher power and with council's cooperation of figuring out where the common ground can be met and enforce those, and who's going to partake in that.
I agree with Cheryl. Look, I have no issue. I respect what you do. You know, I've had good interactions with your force here, so this is not against you guys. But I think we need some quick successes. I mean, every day you read the paper, if I could sell my house, I'd move. And these aren't the people, just, you know, that come, there's draw here. We have to do something. So, I mean, you talked about pulling codes in. I mean, all that stuff is covered here. So I'm kind of getting confused, Dave, about are we doing this or not?
Me.
Well, I mean, you know.
Hey, you make me king. That's a whole different story.
Yeah.
Okay?
But I mean, because it sounds like he mentioned, you know, almost everything on here they look at if they get the house. So I'm getting a little confused on that piece of it. But I think we need to think of a way that we can have some quick successes. And I think that will encourage the good people of this town to stay involved and believe in this town again. Without it, I don't know what you're going to end up with.
Those things are in place. And unfortunately, for the police department, we suffered a setback with being so short on staffing. And that's unfortunate that we had several officers leave, we had numerous officers retire, and it's just a perfect storm. Everything came together that we were down so many officers. We had multiple officers out on injury from job-related issues of getting involved in major incidents that they were put out of work for short periods of time. And that being behind on staffing did affect our capability of being able to take care of everything we can. And now we're back to full staff. We have the additional officers to go out and take care of those nuisance problems. We built up our patrol division stronger again, so we have more officers. And that cooperation is in place of us working with codes, with us working with all the other agencies around, whether it's mental health issues, addiction issues, it's all in place, and we're doing the best we can. Unfortunately, we had a setback, but now we're back to full strength, and that full strength has only been a month since its birth. We first got back to full strength January 12th. So we're back, we're trying to get everything done. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to turn things around overnight. I was a participant in a change that took place in this town about 6 years ago, where we had another flare-up of issues, and at that time it was under Chief Flanders' command, and we went hard with the zero tolerance. And I was, at that time, one of the uniformed officers that was going out and addressing just nuisance issues, and we took a zero tolerance level. Everyone out there knew who we were. The people that needed to concern themselves with not being around when we were out knew who we were. So we were out there to talk to the citizens, the concerned citizens, the ones that wanted to help us, and I saw the change. And we're in the process again. We're going to get things under control. Unfortunately, you know, it's ebb and flow, and we're going to get it back again, and hopefully we can keep our staffing up. It was just posted. We actually are doing another testing process so we can stay ahead of the curve in the event that some officers would leave, so we don't have a dip in staffing again. So, yes, ma'am.
I just want to comment on that. Downtown, as Main Street manager, the merchants have seen better progress. It's a slow process, and that's, I think, where all the frustration comes in. And understanding, you know, I knew a year ago the understaffing and things that were going on through Chief, and it is frustrating, but I walked around last Saturday and had numerous businesses say to me, the cops are here, and they're coming in, and they're thanking us, and they're asking if we have cameras, and they're asking if we have any concern. It's not the perfect world, but I do appreciate.
We're definitely out there. We're definitely trying. If the officers can, if they have time, they're going out and they're doing foot patrols. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. We are trying to be available when events are going on downtown. An example I'll give you, yesterday, there was a play at the Playhouse at Steele River. What was it yesterday, about 11 degrees? I put my uniform on and I was out there from 2 o'clock until about 5:30 to make sure that there wasn't problems, so that people could come and enjoy the play and not have to worry about people being in the downtown area and creating a nuisance. Our presence was to deter that. We've been doing that on the weekends, during the week, when the businesses are open. So on a Sunday afternoon, when it was 11 degrees, I was out there. I was personally there yesterday. So I'm not saying that, I'm not asking, it's just to show you that that's there. Everything's in place and people are trying. And maybe it's this, we need to have the contact so that you know, hey, what's going on, this is what's going on, just to let you know what's going on. But if you have tips, if you have information, if you go to our tip line on the Pottstown Police website, or if you call our extension, if it's activity that's in progress, 911. And then our zone officers will get dispatched, our proactive policing officers will get dispatched from our unit. If it's a tip in reference to a house, a problem individual that's not going on at that time, either online or through the tip line that comes to my desk, you will get a phone call or a response back. The phone call, I will personally return that 99% of the time. Maybe Sergeant Crop might return some of it. That's my phone. So when I get that message, I will return it as soon as I come back to work. Yes, sir.
Yeah, getting back to the nuisance properties, I've heard about, you know, the forfeiture that can happen, you know, that's been talked about. But one question that I have, actually two, is one, when you have a property, like behind me I have a house that I've been here for close to 13 years now. There's always been a drug dealer in there. I'm on my fourth one now. The landlord knows about it. I've reported it numerous times over the years. They're still doing it, all right? So when the police do go out to a residence that's having these problems, are these landlords contacted? Are you contacting these landlords? Because I know personally the one that I'm talking about, I've talked to the landlord. He knows of the situation, all right? So if that's happening, my second question is, are there criminal charges that can be filed against these landlords that knowingly rent out to drug dealers on a constant basis, because it's becoming a problem, not just in my neighborhood, but there's not a block in Pottstown you can go to where there's not at least one drug house now. And everybody knows about it. The landlord knows about it, but I think instead of focusing on forfeiture and the lawyers and all that, if they had criminal charges that could be lodged against them, maybe they wouldn't be so willing to rent to these guys.
I'll defer to Jason, but let me tell you that we do, when we have repeat offender locations where that apartment constantly has somebody in it that we end up arresting, we do contact the landlords. And then I'll defer to Jason as to what can take place after that. We contact the landlords and tell them, listen, this person is doing this in your property, this is going on, it's happened before, we're telling you, you need to contact the district justice office and file the appropriate paperwork you need to help us eliminate that problem.
Have you charged any landlords after, because if you're saying this is being done, then there's obviously landlords out there that are still renting to drug dealers. Have any of them been taken in cuffs? Because I know if in my house, if I let somebody stay in my house and they're dealing drugs out of my house, and you guys come in to arrest them, as a homeowner, I'm going too, because it's my house. The same should go as far as these slumlords that know what's going on in their houses. That's my question.
I'd like to know how you get in.
We actually come up to the codes department and we'll find out whatever the property address is or whatever the apartment is, we'll find out who owns it and we contact them. It's all kept here in the codes inspection.
So they're knowledgeable of what's going on then?
Whether they are,
I mean, it's one thing for me as a resident to say you got drug dealers.
information and we contact them and let them know what's going on. And believe it or not, the majority of the time when we do contact them, we do get cooperation from the landlords. Because, as you said, they don't want to have that blowing back on them. If it starts drawing attention to them, and that is our purpose, we contact them and say, listen, this is what's going on. Unfortunately, there are repeat offender locations, but a lot of times it's at different spots and everywhere.
So does this allow for any of
Cindy, there's people that haven't had a chance to ask questions in the back. We need to get everybody in. I'm sorry to cut you off, but this woman, why don't you ask your question,
I
please?
just have a quick question. I lived in another state for a long time, and once a week in the newspaper, they would post all the people that were arrested, their names and their offense, and they would let people know that they have not gone to trial, but that they were arrested. And it kind of kept people accountable and also let the citizens know what was going on in their community. Is that something that we could do here so people know that there's stuff happening behind the scenes and also make those people accountable for what they're doing, like their offenses, I guess?
The arrest reports are given to the captain of the police department every day. They're reviewed, they're aware of who was arrested in the prior day, and that information then is given to the Mercury at whatever limited basis. I don't know. That's not where I'm involved. Again, that would have to be taken up with our command staff of what is actually given to the Mercury. We do withhold some investigations if there's a potential that that investigation may lead somewhere else, because unfortunately it would be detrimental to the bigger cause if we would give out that information. But as far as giving out the everyday things that occur, there is information given out. How much, I don't know. But that information is brought to the top of the food chain, and whatever is given to the Mercury, that's, I can't comment on that.
I mean, I'm pretty,
I can comment on it if you'd like.
well, from what I remember, it actually did I mean, from what I remember, it actually did make a difference after a while, like, in the community and their crimes and
Chicago just started doing it.
Community meeting, yeah, go ahead.
Comment.
Y'all wanna hear it.
I can tell you that what is provided in the police reports is often 2 weeks old. By the time it goes through the process that Corporal Long described, and it goes through the captain and whatnot, and there is no regularity in which we know it will always be available on a certain day. And so with, if you want to talk about staff reductions from 49 to 14, try from 20 to 4. So we don't have the staff to go over every day and say, do you have reports today?
Yeah.
And you have reports that are anything other than 2 weeks old, because the most important part about news is new.
Right.
And so 2-week-old arrests are not exactly news anymore that takes place.
I mean, what they would do is they would just do a list. Like
Yeah, at the
like
paper I
a
worked
page.
at before, there was a police log. And you'd go every day and you'd copy stuff out of the police log, and that's what we would, and it would get published. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, I was wondering if I can get an answer to my question as far as the slumlords being arrested from the district attorney's office. Are there charges that they can be charged with other than, you know, we're gonna sue you, we're gonna take your house, if they knowingly, continuously rent to drug dealers and problem tenants?
In my experience, if there is a landlord that is facilitating a drug operation out of that house, they will be charged. Now, it's a case-by-case basis, and there are other civil laws that apply, but especially if the person is getting paid in cash that they know comes from drug dealing activity, well, that's a problem. If they continually rent to drug dealers and facilitate that dealing, or partake in any of that dealing, or know what's going on, or accept cash and rent, yes, we are not going to turn a blind eye and just turn away. I mean, we're looking at that more aggressively. After tonight's meeting, one of the good things is that we know that this is a continual problem in Pottstown here, of people doing it time and time again. Now, is it going to happen overnight? No, but believe me, if someone is knowingly renting to drug dealers and benefiting from that drug dealing activity, we will do what we can under the law to prevent that from happening.
Well, I think, you know, obviously, it's not been acted upon, you know, if there is a way to get it done. Personally, I think that if, it would help shorten things a lot if the landlords were made let known that, you know, you're going to jail too, you know. I mean, if the police are having problems at these residents, they should, like we were just told, they were telling the landlords that you do have a problem. If he continues to let that happen, then he can be charged. And I think if one or two people are thrown in jail for doing this.
Do a hypothetical on something, because everything's like a fact basis on the whole thing. And so, as what Jason's talking about is you have to prove that they had knowledge of what was going on. So are they contributing to the drug dealing going on? So if you're the neighbor and you've said to the landlord, this guy's dealing drugs, and then you're telling the police that you've had that conversation with him, and then he keeps doing it, and so it's all these individual fact scenarios. Just if somebody rents to a drug dealer and has no knowledge of it, you know, then we can't prove a case. We got to prove beyond a reasonable doubt.
Well, that's why I'm asking if the police are actually informing these landlords when
It sounds like they are on some, but then you gotta get
because that would build your case then.
those other pieces. You have to put all of those together in terms of it, because, you know, in any criminal case, we have to prove to the highest standard in the law, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And a lot of it in these type of things is knowledge. So how do you infer that they knew that drugs were in there at the time, and, you know, cash payment, you know, something on that, seeing any of those things? All of those are pieces, but, you know, it's all a communication between us and people willing to step forward and give us information that would help along those lines. So there's no charge in our criminal statute books that said landlord, you know, rents a house to a drug dealer and he gets a charge on it. You know, so it's figuring out within the criminal laws.
Other questions? Dale? Yeah, I just assumed I might be wasting your time. I know twice in the last year and a half or so, I've retired now, so I'm through Pottstown a little more, going to the gym, going to the store. I know in my heart I've seen a drug deal go down. You're at a stop sign, but before you get through the intersection, you're gone. You know, it takes 30 seconds. You walk up, somebody hand you some money, you put a bag in your pocket. I'm pretty sure it's a drug deal. Should I call? Should I just give you the location and just tell you what I saw?
Absolutely, and you give as much information as you can. If it's in progress, just call 911.
Okay.
911, we are dispatched through county radio now. 911 makes the quickest connection between you calling to the Pottstown Police getting one. So you call 911, you tell them location, you tell them who the people were, what they looked like, what they were wearing, and the activity you witnessed. If our officer is close enough, hopefully he can get there, maybe before they leave the area. The description you gave will give that officer a reason, okay, here comes an individual, matches that description, within the same area, all those pieces come together, and then that officer can get out, make contact with that subject, and use their skills and training to determine whether that person was involved in that activity. And when we see that pattern of a certain location, then that can be focused on when it's called in. You call in things that are in progress, yes, sometimes we get there and they're gone. Because of the enforcement that we do, when you focus on a problem, rather than being open air drug dealing, everyone makes contact with cell phones. Everyone makes contact with InstaChat, all the systems that are in place for people to make contact with each other. That's how they're doing it. So they'll call each other and say, hey, meet me at King and York in 10 minutes. And boom, it's a hit and run. They're not going to stand there and talk for 20 minutes and talk about how they're going to walk by each other, slap hands, and that's where the exchange took place, right there. And if the officer's close enough, they can get there, they're on top of it. Giving that information, giving a description, gives that officer some of the information he needs to use his tools, hopefully, to make an arrest.
So it wouldn't be a waste of your time?
Absolutely not. It absolutely would not be.
If we had a license plate number, would that also assist? I mean, would you be able to then follow it up to the address of the people?
Yes.
Would you need us to then testify?
No, absolutely not. That's just information we use. Right now, I'm working on a case where I've received a lot of information from numerous concerned citizens, and it is helping me build my case, and some of that is license plates. And I'm finding out that this individual's customers are coming into town to do their business, and he is focusing on dealing with people outside of town. And I think that's how initially he was trying to lay low, and that's actually helping me build my case. So any information we can get, the make, the model, the color, the license plate number, the individuals you saw in the vehicle, if you can get a description on them, as much information as you can get and give us will help.
I'm blessed to be in a very good ward, although my daughter is not so blessed. She's at Chestnut and Franklin, and there's been a lot of activity. So I think most of this for me is information to give to her. She's very scared. She has 2 small children, single mom, shootings everywhere. I mean, it's very disturbing. My granddaughter's having nightmares, and so it's very disturbing. So any information I can gather for her is going to be quite,
And now that
confident.
we have our staffing back, your daughter's going to start seeing a lot more officers on foot in that area. Our uniformed officers are detailed. That is one of our primary areas that we focus on, is our downtown. Okay. We do have issues that take place there. And our officers, now that we have our staffing back, your daughter's going to start seeing more of our uniformed guys back out on foot. And they're probably going to see us out there, every once in a while dealing with what we have to deal with, because if we get a hot tip on a situation of this person's in this certain area, we might step up and take action, because it might take a different approach to get that person.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Cindy?
Yes.
Cindy just said a few minutes ago that she thinks we need to have something put forth, some action that's made notice, that can be noticed by the population. And I wholeheartedly agree with the fact that we think, because I see a lot of negative response in this. I've been here now going on 8 years. And when my neighbors don't see activity, they're not going to come to this, because they just think it's all BS. It's all BS. It's all it ever is in Pottstown. It's all BS. They go and they talk to you about stuff, and it's all BS. Well, they need to see something in the press. Where's the press guy? And they need to see, you guys got to go there. It's your responsibility in this town for you guys to go to the police and say, we need to see what you're doing now, so we can make our population have a positive attitude. Instead of having people, somebody at a party said to me, they think it's the water in Pottstown. It makes people so negative. It's like, no, it's that they've been let down so long, regardless of what the issue is, with staffing, or that's insignificant. The job still has to get done with the staff. I work at a museum that used to have 15 people in it, now there's 8. We still have to move 800-pound sculptures. You still have to do the job. The way to do the job is to let the people know that you are doing it. even if it means that the press has to go out with their 4 staff people and say, we need to make Pottstown positive, synonymous with positive, then it's going to change. So I really agree that we need to let people know that we're doing something. They don't have to have the details. Who cares? As long as they know that somebody got busted here. There was 12 people busted, 4 or 5 people busted today. Let's see that in the paper tomorrow. Take out sound out, whatever, sound off, whatever that silly section is. Talking about what we're doing that's real. I'm sorry, that.
And actually, in defense of the Mercury, there actually has been recently a renewed connection with the Mercury. I was actually, on Friday, I was in the chief's office with Mercury staff, and information was collected on arrests that were made last week. And to put articles in the paper, which one was in yesterday, and that information is being pushed out there. There has been a renewed connection. Chief Drumheller is concerned with getting it out there. He and I talked about that with Sergeant Kropp last week, of starting to put out more information as to what is taking place, and that's what prompted Mr. Brandt to send over his staff on Friday.
Well, you guys are all great. I think it's
Wait for a second. I can't control the press, unfortunately. What I can do is we are here and we hear you, and this community has our attention and we understand the issues.
Yeah.
I know we can't get into details. I know you said it doesn't matter details. We are addressing these issues and we hear you guys.
And we'll try to make it as easy as we can on Evan. You know, he's got my number.
Evan, hey, Paul. Just so you know, I had, Corporal Long is correct, I had a conversation with the chief about the need when they provide arrest information, to also provide the fact that it was tips from residents who made that happen.
Oh, great.
And so you're going to start, you should already, if you're a subscriber, and I'm sure you are. You'll start to see in headlines, you'll see in headlines that, you know, tips lead to, because I agree with you, and I said the same thing to the chief. I said, people need to know that when they call, that something happened as a result of that.
Yes.
And those are the small successes. I agree with you 100% that they want to see, but we never had that information before. And the chief said it just hadn't really occurred to him that that would be important information in terms of helping the community realize that they were taking part in all of this. So that's already underway.
That's beautiful.
So
you can
moral of the story,
Thank you.
moral of the story, you know, buy the Mercury so they can do more staff, and then we can work together and get more of the good message out.
Also, on the same theme, I don't know whether they're calling the tip line. I don't think they are. When people call 911 repetitively for drug activity in the same area, and they just get told, thank you, maybe it would help just to say we're aware of it and we're working on it, just so that they're not feeling so defeated, because that's how they feel.
I can tell you that every time someone calls 911, the 911 center sends that information to the Pottstown Police Department, and the Pottstown Police Department always dispatches an officer to that scene. Always. We never turn down any call. We are a full-service department. We're not like a bigger agency, which a lot of larger agencies make citizens come in and fill out affidavits where you're filing a civil complaint about harassment situation or whatever the case may be, because they don't have the time or the manpower to deal with that. We are a full-service department. When someone calls 911, someone will be dispatched to that scene.
And sometimes the people just don't see it. You know,
Right,
or
and
the cops
a
drive
lot of
by.
times when we are dispatched to certain situations, as it may be, say, someone calls 911 and says, my next door neighbor is dealing drugs, somebody's always out there, there's people out there. Well, the officer will go through there, and if they can see something, they'll take action on it. Sometimes that officer thinks to himself, for the better of the cause, for the bigger situation, maybe it's not a good idea to walk up to the drug dealer next door and say, hey, your next door neighbor just called us and said, you're out here hanging out. If they have contact with people, they got to say, hey, we got a call for a disturbance. They're not going to give out who called or what the situation is, but there is contact. And an officer's always dispatched to every scene.
In this situation, I know where it is, and it's in an alley, and it's just a group of people. So somebody sees them, thinks they see something, calls, not outside, they go in and call, and then they say they do never see a cop.
There's
Could be.
someone went there.
Okay.
And it may not be immediately. I mean, there are times when our entire department that is on duty is tasked with calls, and sometimes calls do stack up. But those officers will get to those calls, and unfortunately, if 10 to 15 minutes, say we get a call for drug activity in a certain alley, and everyone is busy, everyone's tied up, as soon as someone is available, I promise you, they're getting sent to that next call. And when they get there, if 10, 15 minutes has passed, and the people are gone, okay, they're gone, the officer can't do anything, and they went through there 10 or 15 minutes later because they were taking care of another domestic on the other side of town, but then that person, okay, I stood there and watched for 10 minutes and no cops came. That may be the situation. But I can promise you that every call to 911, a Pottstown police officer responds to. Every one.
Oh, it's been answered several times actually, but I did want to just reiterate that, really, if, it seems to me that if you can't figure out a way to, focus on and target the slumlords or that section of landlord that is completely uninterested in the community and what effect their renter population is having on the community, you will simply be run ragged. Because no one that I've spoken to has any problem with what the police are doing.
Agreed.
But you guys are just gonna get worn out. I
And
mean, and
maybe that's an
obviously,
issue for our elected officials to take on of what can be done.
I don't
What
think
does
there's
the borough
anybody in
want
this
to do?
room who hasn't approached an elected official about this. But, thank you, I just really wanted to reiterate that.
Yeah, that's what the value, this drug nuisance statute has to it, that landlords will be put on notice, or homeowners that have this kind of activity going on their property, they could lose their investment. There's value in that, if there's a chance they're gonna lose their investment.
Even more when they lose their freedom.
So why not use it? Why not? Just another tool that we could use. I think it'd be silly not to use it.
Any other questions? Anybody else? Okay, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. I'd like to thank Jason Whaley and First Assistant District Attorney Steele for coming out. I'd like to thank the members of the Pottstown Police Department for being here. But most of all, I'd like to thank all of you. We'll keep this conversation going. Who is we? We is me. I'm just me. That's all I am. I'm not elected. I'm not involved in anything other than trying to make a difference in the town. I've lived here pretty much my whole life, and like to see things moving in a positive direction. So we will keep the energy going. Thank you all for coming out. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. Things are happening. Things are being done. It works slowly, but we're moving.
Will there be another meeting after this?
Well, we're gonna go back, we're gonna evaluate it, we're gonna figure out, I'll do some talking to these folks and the police and everybody. And if we see, and if you folks give us feedback, because you folks, I guess, are all social media, Facebook people, I guess, or a lot of you are. I'm not, but I understand that's how a lot of the information gets passed around. If you people see a need for it, we'll do it again. We'll do it again, okay? Thank you all very much for coming out.
Thank you.